Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of Dumfries and Galloway Council on 5th of February 2015. I'd just like to remind people that this meeting is being recorded. We have a couple of items on the agenda in addition to those required for budget setting day in relation to the job descriptions for the new directors' posts and recommendations from the Scrutiny Performance Committee in relation to the review of procurement and commissioning. Alec, can I have the Sederunt apologies?
Thanks, Leader. I've got a number of apologies. I've apologies from Councillor Collins, Councillor Dykes, Councillor Gilroy, Councillor Groom, Councillor Diggle and Councillor McCutcheon. Councillor Findlay Carson is not present, nor is Councillor Sean Marshall. There are 39 members in the room.
Okay. Moving on to item 2. Do any members have a declaration of interest?
Sean. That's Sean, right, okay. That's 14.
No. If we move on to... Sorry? Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Can I see you, Andy, because you were sitting in the wrong seat?
It's a big thing in the front, yeah, I've got that.
It's you.
It's actually a procedural question, Leader, and I think a request to be addressed before members actually move on to considering budget implications and proposals. As your members are aware, the Deputy First Minister announced yesterday in Parliament that it's providing a further 10 million for 2015-16 in addition to the 41 million previously allocated to support teacher numbers, and that this total resource of 51 million will only be available to local authorities on a council-by-council basis if they're prepared to sign up to a clear commitment to protect teacher numbers. Any council that does not make and deliver on that commitment will not benefit from that funding. So can the Section 95 officer please advise members what impact, if any, this announcement will have on the relevant savings templates and on consideration of budget proposals today?
The Council has already provided details of the level of teacher savings being reflected in the budget proposals before members today, today to COSLA. COSLA used these figures to support their discussion of teacher numbers with the Scottish Government. Both of these budget proposals before the Council today are in line with the indications already given to COSLA. It follows, therefore, that these figures have helped to inform the Scottish Government's consideration on the level of financial provision to be added to the funding settlement to maintain teacher numbers. While the funding distribution arrangements are still to be considered, it can be anticipated that if, and it's a big if, councils were required to amend budget plans, then they would be compensated accordingly. Again, I would say that we are dealing with the council's budget for 3 years, and amendments can be made to the budget provision to take account of the Scottish Government requirements at any time. There is therefore absolutely no need, for any further discussion on this, the entire budget. So I don't, I move that we proceed.
Okay, with respect, Leader, this is not about you personally. I would like the Section 95 officer to tell us there's no budget implications from this announcement.
Well, we can't do that until we get the detail. So
that's exactly the point.
Yeah,
that's exactly the point we're making. Because
I'm not having a discussion here about that.
Well, in that case, then I have a procedural motion, Leader.
Right. I move that we proceed to consider the budget proposal before us. Colin, second.
We just asked the Section 95 officer just to confirm that there is no information that's been provided that prevents us from proceeding with the budget today.
Yeah, could ask that.
Chair, are we following the agenda?
There's a procedural motion. Yep, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I can confirm that there's no information received that prevent us proceeding today. I can also confirm that what the Leader has just said is in line with my own advice. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So I move that we proceed to consider. Ted, is it?
Excuse me, Leader, I have a procedural motion.
Is it Ted? Is it Ted? Yes. Would you stop interrupt, please? Thanks. Yep. No, it's been nice.
Yep. Yes. An actual, well, okay, I'll go with an amendment, okay. We're mindful that we must be satisfied as members in possession of all the available information to support our decisions and the likely impacts these will have in the Council. I therefore propose the following motion in light of the announcement on Parliament on Wednesday 4th of February by the Deputy First Minister of additional funding to support teacher numbers and the conditions to be placed in councils in order to receive this funding. This Council agrees to adjourn setting of the 2015-16 budget until a full assessment of the impact of this announcement can be provided.
I'd second that, Leader.
You've got all the information you need in front of you. You've got the Section 95 officers, view that we don't need any further information on this at the moment. Budgets can be changed at any time through the year with any Scottish Government announcement. So my motion still stands that I move that we proceed to consider the budget proposal before us. So we've got a motion.
An amendment.
I'll second that motion. And in so doing, I want to focus.
You've already seconded it.
We have an amendment on the table.
Are you, so you've put an amendment to that?
Absolutely, that was what I read.
Right. I've got to say I'm not happy that that amendment's competent for the reasons that the Section 95 officer said, and for the reason that this could happen at any time of the year, that proposals could come forward from the Scottish Government, announcements, declarations could come forward. So we've got to adjust our budget as and when that happens.
So are you ruling my amendment incompetent, Leader?
Yep.
In that case, then you're not prepared to wait a fortnight or 10 days or so to get...
No. Sorry?
On clarification, Chair, I would have thought that was a procedural motion that was competent in that to the remarks you're making as the Chair.
Right, well, I'll ask the Governance Officer.
In the end of the day, Leader, what we have here is, as Councillor Scobie says, a motion that you defer consideration of the entire budget pending the outcome of an announcement which may or may not come from the appropriate Cabinet Secretary. The situation is that the Section 95 officers provided clear advice to members that there is nothing to impede consideration of the budget proposal as going forward. You yourself have intimated it's a 3-year budget. The figures which I have heard on the national media are not figures which cannot be addressed through an adjustment to the budget. As you yourself have said, it is competent for this Council to adjust its budget figures as it goes on, particularly as it's adopting a 3-year budget. If you're minded to rule that that is not a competent motion, notwithstanding the fact that it's a procedural motion, I think that you have the right to do that, Leader.
Okay, right, we'll move on. Item 3, which is the minute of the meeting the 18th of December for approval. I'll move.
Second.
Okay, moving on to item 4, which is the council tax community charges restriction in voting. This is a report by a proper officer. It's a legal requirement that a member who is 2 or more months in arrears of council tax or 3 or more months in arrears of community charge does not have voting rights in relation to fixing the council tax and requires to make a declaration to that effect. While the budget makes no provision for an increase in council tax, technically, if not practically, we are fixing the council tax today. Can I take it that members are happy to note the terms of the report and move on? Okay, moving on to item 5, which is the budget and council tax 2014-15. This is a report by the Head of Finance. This report provides information to allow members to determine the council's budget and council tax level for the upcoming financial year 2015-16, but also beyond as part of a firm indicative 3-year budget, both in terms of the revenue budget and the capital budget. The report reminds members of the agreed budget timetable and process, and members will have received details of 2 possible budget proposals, one from the administration and one from the SNP. As members are aware, key requirements of the Scottish Government settlement deal are to maintain a council tax freeze, secure places for all probationers who require one under the teacher induction scheme, and commit to an outcome-based approach to educational improvement, which would include teacher numbers. The latter one, however, is still subject to negotiation, and like all other councils, none of us know what this actually means in practical terms. The updated financial position is detailed in Appendix 3. Do members have any questions for Paul? No? So we're happy to note the information. Okay.
It's positive. Could actually, this is my first time on a budget setting process, and something's become clear to me. Can we recommend as part of this, the whole improvement in how we set the budget stuff, that we actually have some sort of document control procedure put in place? Because so that everyone knows exactly which copy of which template or document we're actually dealing with. I appreciate it's an operational matter, but it'd be really helpful for all members and officers, I would suggest, if that was put in place.
Okay, we'll do that. We now turn to item 6, which is a presentation of budget proposals 2015-16, 17-18. Can I formally move a proposal from the Labour Administration? In December, the Labour Administration published their draft council budget consultation document. I made clear that we do not have a monopoly on ideas and wanted to consult other groups on our proposals. But more importantly, I wanted to hear from our council staff and local communities, listen to their views and put them at the heart of the decisions our council makes. As a result, our budget proposals for the next 3 years are the only ones that have been subject of unprecedented level of engagement we have seen in recent weeks. Prior to the publication of our draft budget, an online survey seeking the views of the public and the council's priorities and what we should be spending the council budget on was completed by 457 people. Dozens of suggestions of savings were made by staff through our council staff suggestions scheme. Facebook and Twitter Speak to the Leader sessions were held with 283 comments and questions posted on the budget. Budget posts on the council Facebook page were also read by 17,096 people. Following the publication of the draft budget in December, a further public consultation took place. Copies of the consultation document were distributed in libraries and customer service centres and sent to local groups, including community councils. Special area committee meetings were held in the Stewartry, Wigtonshire, Nithsdale and Annandale and Esdale in January 2015, and 233 people completed a further online budget survey. This was in addition to considerable consultation that has taken place in relation to a number of service reviews that have already been reported to service committees and which were unanimously agreed by all members. We have carefully considered the feedback we received during the public consultation. I hope all members will have read the feedback, as the public comments in a whole host of areas act as a reminder that what we are discussing today is not one issue. It is not one area. It is the budget, both capital and revenue, for the whole council and for every department for the next 3 years. I am pleased that the public consultation showed positive support for an ambitious jobs plan to invest £3.5 million a year to deliver a youth guarantee for DG, guaranteeing a place in education, training or a job for every young person in Dumfries and Galloway within 4 months of them leaving school or losing a job, is a proposal this council should be very proud to take forward. During the consultation, there was a real recognition from the public and staff that our council faces a major challenge in having to make savings of £32 million over the next 3 years. This is on top of the £40 million already saved over the past 4 years. However, I am concerned that many people still seem to be in denial over the impact such a level of savings is likely to have in our services. Anyone in this chamber today who pretends to people that the scale of cuts being forced upon our council can be achieved easily and without any pain whatsoever is simply not being honest with the public. When we published our budget consultation, we made clear that there were some tough decisions to be taken. However, we built in flexibility by not fully allocating all funds set aside for policy development, and we asked the public how they wished us to allocate those remaining funds, either through additional policy development proposals or by removing or reducing some of the savings options. We considered carefully the feedback from the public on this question, and it's clear they wish to see a combination of both, and that is therefore what we are proposing today. In relation to additional policy development proposals, our draft budget focused on our priority of building the local economy. In our final budget before members today, we set out plans to also support our other priorities, protecting the most vulnerable and providing the best start in life for all our children. We have identified significant funding to develop Dumfries and Galloway's first ever anti-poverty strategy. As a starting point, we propose to set up a £1 million a year fund to take forward this strategy. Dumfries and Galloway is the lowest paid region in Scotland, and that is a shameful record. I am therefore proud that this council is playing its part in tackling that problem by delivering a living wage for our staff. But now I want to see that rolled out to as many workers across the region through our partners and contractors, and today's budget is a major first step along that road. We also propose to establish a new, more comprehensive taxi card scheme, and we have outlined plans to provide extra support for those with dementia. To support our priority of providing the best start in life for our children, we have put forward proposals to develop new, innovative family centres, initially in 4 communities, but if successful, with a view to rolling these out to other areas where appropriate. We have proposed the establishment of Schools Transport Contingency Fund and outlined plans to pilot the model of school-based social work provision in 2 school clusters, one in the east of the region and one in the west. We believe that by allowing our social work team to work with children and families at an earlier stage, we can prevent problems escalating, reducing the need for intervention at a later stage. We have also used the flexibility we have set aside to reduce further the savings required in education. Firstly, to support the implementation of an improved supporting learner service, we have set aside a contingency fund of £500,000 to address any unexpected shortfalls in provision of the ESL. In addition, we have allocated a recurring budget of £500,000 in 2017-18, increasing to £1 million from 2017-18 onwards to savings within the Supported Learners Review and the Primary and Secondary School Delivery Review. The application of this provision will be subject to consideration by the Education Committee when you have seen the outcome of the Primary and Secondary Review. The second change we have made in relation to savings is to propose a freeze in the price of school meals and therefore not go ahead with any increase. Members will be aware that one of the planned future service reviews will consider the issue of charging for services, and therefore we believe it would be fair to consider this matter as part of that wider review. Finally, I want to turn to the capital budget. Our draft capital budget confirmed the previously agreed indicative figures set for 2015-16 to 2017-18 for the various asset classes, with the exception of the allocation for school buildings and economic development. Instead, we propose an increase in funding for school buildings across the region from the indicative figures of £4.25 million per year to £5 million per year by 2017-18, with further provisional increases in future years. In relation to economic development, the indicative figure set by members in March 2014 for 2017-18 was £1.5 million. However, in our draft budget, the administration proposed that the allocation be increased to £2 million. We recommend that £400,000 of this is set aside for the Stranraer Townscape Heritage Initiative, taking the full council allocation to £1 million for this project. The allocation is to maximise the potential to draw down external regeneration within Stranraer Town Centre conservation area. But even if those bids are not successful, we believe that the funding should remain for regeneration projects within Stranraer. In addition, we proposed £100,000 is allocated to draw up plans for future regeneration projects in Stranraer, including the possible development of new employment sites and small business units in the area. Members will also recall that the £493,000 remains unallocated for regeneration projects in Stranraer due to savings in previous projects in the waterfront, and allocation of this funding will be the subject of consultation with Wigtonshire Area Committee. Our draft budget also proposed to allocate £500,000 from economic development funding during 2017-18 towards public realm improvements in Dumfries Town Centre and £500,000 to support the Moatbrae project. A further £400,000 was confirmed for the planned Gretna public realm improvements, taking the provision for the improvement projects in Gretna and Gretna Green and Springfield to £950,000. We also proposed to allocate £100,000 towards developing future proposals for the M74 corridor and Chapel Cross. In our final budget, we have confirmed the above plans, but in addition, we wish to propose a £500,000 increase to the infrastructure budget on a recurring basis from 2015-16, taking this asset class to £9.5 million per year, with the additional funds targeted towards the Strategic Roads Fund. This ensures that over the past 2 years there has been no overall reduction in roads budget due to capitalisation. Our capital budget proposals will see nearly £370 million of investment over the next 10 years in a range of projects from new schools to town centre regeneration, creating and maintaining hundreds of jobs and transforming communities across Dumfries and Galloway. In our draft budget, we make clear that the way the Council sets our budget has changed. As I have outlined, we have brought together Council's revenue and capital budgets and now set them at the same time, and we have agreed robust comprehensive budget principles. Our budget proposes measures that ensure every single aspect of the work of our Council is fully reviewed, not just to identify savings, but improve services. The old way of looking for cuts on a year-by-year, department-by-department basis is now gone. And in this document, we set out proposals to embed the move to a 3-year budget with a new timetable for the budget setting process for the next year onwards, which members will see detailed on page 23 and 24 of our final budget proposal document. There is no doubt that as a Council we face very challenging financial times, but despite those challenges and the undeniable constraints we are under, I believe these proposals will not only change our Council for the better, but help change Dumfries and Galloway for the better. And I am therefore pleased to formally move the administration's budget.
I'm happy to second the administration budget, and in doing so I want to focus on the reasons that we're here today. As councillors, we're being asked to set the financial framework for our council for the next 3 years. It's an important responsibility, and we take our decisions at a time of unprecedented reductions in our funding. I don't think anyone here in the chamber today chose to be a councillor to spend their time trying to identify cuts year on year, but that's the place we find ourselves in. As an administration, we've worked hard over the past year to develop proposals that we believe change not only our council, but our region for the better. As Ronnie's outlined, the proposals we set out today focus our spend on the council's agreed priorities: building the economy through our youth guarantee, support for small businesses, and help for looked after young people. We protect the vulnerable with significant new investment to take forward an anti-poverty strategy, a new taxi card scheme, and additional support for those with dementia. We provide the best start in life for all of our children with the establishment of family centres, school-based social work provision, and a school transport contingency fund. In developing our proposals, we've carried out an unprecedented level of public engagement, and we've invited all council groups, without favour, to work with us in the best interest of our region and to develop the best possible budget. Some have taken up that offer, others have not. Some have engaged from the beginning, others, regrettably, have waited until the last few days. In preparing our budget, we could have just put together proposals based simply on securing a majority of votes and ignoring the minority. However, we've taken a much more inclusive approach. In our proposals presented here today, there can be no question in the fact that we've listened to all the groups who have engaged with us and, as far as possible, included proposals from others where we can. Have we been able to include everything that everyone has asked for? Of course not. Have we set out a budget that respects the views of other groups? I think we have. However, that respect needs to be two-way. Ronnie has set out a number of changes we have made to the draft proposals published in December. I want to highlight one other change we propose. In our draft budget, recognising the support for considering different approaches to the way we deliver some of our services, we propose setting up a charitable trust and leasing of 3 of our largest leisure facilities to that trust to make savings on non-domestic rates. In addition to this, however, we have asked for further options to be provided to councillors to consider the inclusion of all leisure and sports facilities in a trust or through other delivery models such as community hubs, which we believe is the preferred option and the preferred option of Sport Scotland. I believe that's a significant compromise, and I hope members of other groups will respect that. If not, regrettably, I suspect that will change the approach the administration takes when it comes to discussions around the future decisions. The second issue I want to address is in relation to education. I say education rather than just learning support, because the decisions we are being asked to take today go beyond one area. As members will be aware, Education Committee agreed unanimously in November 2013 that 3 reviews should be undertaken by education: early years and integration, supporting learners, and in 2015, primary and secondary education. The review on supporting learners has been completed after a very rigorous and very thorough process. That review put forward 2 options. Option A proposed to streamline and redesign the current centrally based model with 15% savings. This was unanimously rejected at the Education Committee in November 2014 by all groups in favour of option B, which was to establish a multidisciplinary area team model. Everyone agreed that such a model ensures decisions will be made closer to individuals and their families, and resources will be more effectively managed to focus on those most in need. The new approach will be introduced over 3 years, and performance will be closely monitored and reported back to the Education Committee. At the end of this period, the budget for targeted supported learning will still be at least 16 million and employing at least 500 full-time equivalent staff. However, to support the implementation of the agreed supporting learning services review outcome, the administration proposes a £500,000 contingency fund be established to address any unexpected shortfalls in provision, which might arise as a result of unforeseen circumstances. An example might be a child with complex needs moving into a region and requiring support, or an unexpected residential placement being required when difficulties have escalated. Following the decision of the Education Committee to agree the service review in November, a series of family engagement forums for parents with additional support needs were established, and the administration believes these forums should continue to be held and to monitor carefully any changes and help highlight any areas that may benefit from support from the contingency fund. In addition to that contingency fund, our budget today also proposes that £500,000 be set aside for 2016-17, rising to £1 million for 2017-18, and recurring each year after to mitigate against education savings. The use of these funds will be considered by the Education Committee. These funds can be used to either reduce the planned savings in ESL or to reduce the savings in the forthcoming primary and secondary review that is due to report in July. Members may ask, why don't we just agree to use all that money to reduce additional support for learning savings? The simple answer is that may happen if the Education Committee chooses that option. But we do not yet know what will be contained in the primary and secondary review. Members are aware that this review has been tasked with saving a further £2.9 million on a year by 2017-18. It may be that some of the proposals in that review are more concerning to parents than the ESL review. It would be foolish to look in isolation at the proposals for ESL without knowing the impact on the review of primary and secondary education, the results of which will be known in July. When we have these results, the Education Committee will be able to make a considered choice on the combined review. Councillors today need to consider carefully the options open to them, the effects of making a decision in isolation, and the possible repercussions on the ongoing reviews. We have sufficient time to consider this when we have the results of the primary and secondary review, without impacting on the change model of ESL, and I would urge you to bear that in mind. Members are aware that the Scottish Government agreed its budget yesterday, and reference was made to potential funding for teachers' number. The overall figure referred to was relatively small for the whole of Scotland, and is still at a stage unclear how much, if any, we will receive. No. Point of order.
Excuse me, please don't interrupt the speaker.
I have to, because the speaker has actually taken far more time than he's actually allocated.
I'm sorry, I'm the chair in this, not you, Andrew. If you don't like that, please leave the chamber.
No, I certainly will not.
I'll repeat that. The overall figure referred to was relatively small for the whole of Scotland, and it is still at a stage unclear how much, if any, we will receive, or what conditions will be for the funding. However, given that we are currently below the Scottish Government's teacher-pupil ratio, we would hope to add any additional resources we received to our proposed mitigation fund to minimise further the level of savings needed. Over and above this, the administration will be seeking to find additional savings across the council to redirect those into supporting the best outcomes for young people. I'd invite all groups to take part in these discussions with us, and through this, to find ways to deal with the myriad of issues which affect the lives and well-being of the people we serve. Thank you.
Okay, Graham, you want it in?
Thank you, Leader. I won't overuse my time for speaking. Councillor Wood's brevity is always a favourite of mine. I congratulate you, Leader, on a good budget that I can agree with most of. As I've said to you previously, hard times require for hard decisions to be made, and every one of the 47 of us here would rather be in a different position. I remember the days when the fights in here used to be over what we would spend the extra money on. Sadly, those days are long gone, and we have to take unpalatable decisions. I could support your budget, bar one thing, and I would put a proposal forward for the reasons. I know Andy tried to deal with it under procedural motion, but it refers to the hot potato, and let's face it, I'm not going to go over it all. We've all received sufficient emails, concerns expressed by the public, parents, etc., and I'm referring to the Supporting Learners Service Review. To me, the neatest way to do it, and we are going to set a budget today, that has been deemed by the Section 3 officer, would be to use the £500,000 that you've earmarked for future, put it in today, continue the status quo, wait until we get clarity from the ongoing shenanigans in Hollywood and exactly what we have to cut in place, wait until we can placate or satisfy the Children's Commissioner, and wait until we can placate and satisfy the many concerned parents that are out there. I'm not saying that savings can't be made within the ASL. I'm quite sure they can. But to me, we're putting the cart before the horse. We have the money today to put that in to enable us to set a balanced budget. And the quicker we do a whole review and wait on any future information that's coming, then we can take an informed decision. And I would so move that, Chair.
Jeff?
Yeah, kind of just wondered about the competence of this, because we have carried out a full review. It was approved unanimously at the Education Committee on the 27th of November last year. So I can't see what Graham's actual concerns are in terms of which part of the review doesn't he agree with.
Answer, Jeff. I believe we can't make an informed decision today because we're not in possession of the fullest of information. It's as simple as that.
I think we've had an 18-month review. We've had a decision from Education Committee that no one recalled, and we've had that decision, and that is whether you like it or not. That is the way that decisions are taken in the council. It's not on an ad hoc basis. It's not on. I would say a full 18 months that it took to review this situation is quite a review, and it's a very strong message that's coming out. So I can't accept that motion. So, go on.
I mean, leaving aside the 6-month rule, that obviously means you can't overturn a decision which has been proposed here. I think what I've got a concern about is that what Councillor Foster said was he wanted to put on hold the changes that were unanimously agreed by the committee. Now, I don't sit in education, but I did read the report. I did speak to a lot of people as a result of this review, and one of the clear messages that came across is that the current system is not working as well as we want it to work, and therefore that's why the changes were being made. To propose to continue with the current system for an indefinite period, which presumably based on the motion is at least a year, means that we're effectively saying we've recognised the system doesn't work, we've recognised it needs to be changed, but we're not going to change it. And I think that's an issue of real concern for me. The funding is there, the £500,000 contingency fund is there. It will go to Education Committee before the beginning of the new school year. Education Committee will determine that funding and how it can best be used at that particular time. But to simply say, take that money, put it on hold, and make no changes to the system, I think is frankly certainly not a way forward. Now, I don't know how many of the posts that are being lost within the first year are actually already vacancies. I don't know how many of those posts are probably long-term sicknesses, but given the small number of posts, I cannot see how that is likely to be impact on the service. But what I do think will impact on the service is continuing with a structure that frankly everyone recognises needs to be improved. We've had a significant review in the process that's involved a lot of people. It's taken place over an 18-month period. How long will this extra review take place?
What I said and what my motion said was until we're in receipt of the fullest of information. There's ongoing grounds and shifting of sands at Holywood at the moment. We don't know what's happening, and yet we're taking a decision. I'll cast members' minds back to about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was sitting one down from me when we did the review of facilities in Stranraer and community, the rationalisation of council facilities. We have never yet seen the savings that have come forward from that. We've been asking for them for years. I believe there's a report coming to the Wigan Area Committee, but on budget setting day, we're inclined to take decisions where we can't quantify what we're taking. And I fully appreciate you putting in this £500,000 to mitigate it. What I'm saying is we're taking a decision today, we're not in the fullest of information because we don't know what's coming from Holyrood or what is not coming from Holyrood or anything else. That we continue at the moment, and we do, as soon as we have the information, we bring it forward to full council so that all political groups can have an input.
Okay, I'm going to stop you here, Graham. I'm going to stop you there. I think you've had enough time on that. I mean, what you're saying is we might never ever set a budget because if we never ever have that information. We make budgets, and I'll state what I've said before. Make budgets. This is our budget setting day, our council tax day, and whatever changes happen in the future, we take them into consideration like we've always done. Right? We haven't got anything here in concrete today. In fact, there's a meeting in Cosla tomorrow, I think it is, to discuss that, and then further discussions with the Scottish Government. We don't have all these. We don't have all these. So we could delay it and delay it and delay it, and it's not the way that I intend to run a council. Willie now.
Yeah, Chair, and I'm coming in to second the amendment to your budget. Council tax has already been set, so it's the budget we are considering today, and it's quite competent, in my opinion, to amend the budget that is before us. I don't think that the amendment that Graham has moved has changed anything. It does not say to change the decision of the committee. However, we are saying in the amendment that we want to see the £500,000 used towards that 391,000 and to wipe out that 391,000 of cuts to teachers. And we still move forward in reviewing the structure and how it's delivered to see how we do improve, and there is very much need for improvement. We do commend you for the unenviable task of the Labour administration in coming forward. You do speak on anti-poverty, and I've raised the fuel poverty issue in the past, and there is still child poverty before I'm attacked on that one. I recognise that. Social media is a wonderful thing when you want to throw abuse. There's we have tabled the issue on the living wage, and I would have hoped that you had included that in your speech, and we hope that you do extend the commitment to the living wage to contractors, and we would wait for that. We do welcome, Graham and I welcome the commitment to the regeneration of Stranraer, and let's hope we get round to actually listening to the voice of the people of Stranraer. So, in line with our amendment, I hope that you do accept this as an amendment to your budget and nothing to do with the decision of the council, or rather the Education Committee, in that we want to see that 500,000 used, decided by all the members, rather than the Education Committee, which is before us today, and that we wipe out that. So, happy to second the amendment to your budget, Chair.
Well, on that basis, I can't accept that because you can't overrule the Education Committee. Jeff?
Yeah, I think this is reaching ridiculous proportions. I mean, we seem to be agreeing that we go through with the review, but we put it on hold. The situation we've got at the moment, which we know isn't working, we put this on hold indefinitely until we wait for some instruction to come down from Holyrood, and the decision then will be made by full council rather than by the service committee. I'm afraid that Willie's just making it up as he goes along.
Rob? Rob, please have respect for the next speaker. Thanks.
Thank you, Leader. I'm almost beginning to feel for you. We're taking a refreshingly kind of free-form approach to the budget deliberations today. I have one thing that I wanted to mention, specifically with regard to the references were made to the decision at Education Committee, because I was there and asked specifically on the record for the clarification. At Education Committee, we were asked to choose between two proposed models, but we weren't setting a budget at Education Committee because that's properly the role of this particular meeting. And so it was very clear when we made that decision that the amounts of savings that we would be prepared to accept resulting from those proposals would be determined here. As I understand it, that's what Councillor Scobie, Councillor Foster are talking about. That's what Councillor Ferguson, when he gets a chance, will go on to talk about. These are two separate things. I don't think the one can be used as a cover for the other.
I don't think that's what Councillor Foster and Scobie said. They wanted it put on hold, so they're not determining anything. Andy?
Thanks, Leader. I've been sitting waiting patiently, as you can appreciate. Can I just begin actually by thanking all the members and the members of staff for their messages of goodwill for Brian, which I can assure you both Brian and Hill.
Sorry, is this to do with any questions, or are you proposing?
With the greatest respect, I'm trying to inform members that
I'm saying, are you excuse me. What I'm trying to clarify is this you?
Yes.
I was going to ask for a budget, another budget.
Okay, yes. That's it now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry. Okay. I'll not rehash that, but I mean, there's the Collins family are very appreciative of all the support they've had right across the chamber and right across the council setup. That's been invaluable to them. You know, very helpful in that support. I would also like to thank all those whose advice and assistance have been invaluable in drawing up our proposals. When the administration published its draft budget in December, the SNP said then that there was much we recognised and indeed supported, and that is still the case. We said that we would seek to amend the administration proposals where we had concerns, and that is exactly what we've tried to do. On Monday, we sought through negotiation to arrive at a situation we believe would be good for this council and good for the region, a unanimous budget. Negotiations took place right up to within an hour of the deadline, but that eventually proved fruitless. I will therefore outline where we differ from the administration in formally moving our proposals. I will firstly address the issue of additional support for learning. Leader, in light of the communication by the Children's Commissioner with his council, I want to offer you this opportunity to withdraw this saving this year in year one, in line with the advice in his letter that we should pause and take stock and follow his suggestions that we carry out a children's rights impact assessment using his office's templates before any substantive decisions are taken. That way we may fully assess the potential impact of these proposals from a children's rights perspective. Right? In doing so, I cast no aspersions whatever on the integrity and professionalism of the officers who've been working using the Council's framework. But Leader, we have a Children's Commissioner for a reason, and in our view, we ought to heed advice when we receive it. If you're so minded, the SNP group will similarly amend our proposal to remove that saving in year one, bearing in mind that years 2 and 3 are indicative budgets, which will inevitably be subject to amendment. You may wish to pause proceedings afterwards to actually have an opportunity to state, after others have an opportunity to state their views on this. My speech is out of sync here because they've got in before me, but you take my point. Turning to our other proposals, like our Labour colleagues, we have only recently become persuaded of the case in favour of creating an arm's length organisation to deliver our sports, leisure and cultural services. Unlike Labour, however, we have taken on board the independent advice commissioned by Vocal, the voices of Chief Officers for Culture, Leisure and on arm's length organisations, which made the following observation, and I quote directly, "Scale matters, and any new trust requires a degree of scale to be financially viable. Small trusts with few assets will provide very modest savings, which will struggle to outweigh the costs of their establishment. Right, we consider that the administration has established the principle of a trust in this region, but we propose that, like some other Labour-run councils in Scotland, it is of a scale, it needs to be on a scale to deliver the savings we need to protect the services and outweigh the costs of establishment. The process of due diligence will address the issues such as common good facilities. Turning to some of our other proposals, in December, Councillor Collins also referred to the cessation of additional commission services from DAGCAS due to end in March this year. Our understanding of the process would prevent a direct continuation of that funding. Consequently, we have proposed a new commission focused on enhancing public access to advice and support services for those members of our community who have or could fall through the net. We commend the administration for starting to address local poverty issues and the amount of money they have prepared to set aside in general. But we believe that this issue needs to be specifically addressed. We as an authority entered into a collective bargaining situation with the joint trade unions over single status. We think it is unfortunate that some years after the implementation date in 2009, there are still a relatively small number of employees who are still working under old conditions of service. This is clearly unfair on the vast majority of those staff affected by the single status agreement and needs to be rectified. To do this, we propose that the full and final implementation of single status is put into practice immediately. This does not refer to the legal challenge currently before the courts. Just to be absolutely certain of that. As the budget development progressed, it became apparent that this action will in fact create 13 full-time jobs. In an environment where we expect staff to do more with less, we recognise the need to set an example. So we propose a small but symbolic saving in members' catering. After all, most people provide their own lunch and buy their own tea and coffee. So should we. Incidentally, this equates to approximately, the savings equate to approximately 1,100 classroom hours or approximately 900 additional support for learning hours or home care hours each and every single year. We propose the creation of a unified registry of common good land holdings and an open space review to identify and dispose of areas of land this council has no use for, but must maintain and which could be better used by others. Leader, we have sought to be constructive in our approach to this budget process. There remains time for us to negotiate, and with goodwill we could still achieve a unanimous balanced budget. I therefore formally move the SNP budget proposals as an amendment to the administration's budget, with the objective of improving it and in the hope that it is not too late for a constructive outcome which commands broad support across this chamber. Thank you.
Formally second, Chair.
You asked for a recess to consider some of this for some clarity. Sorry, Ivor.
Just a point of clarification, I maybe picked up wrong. With regard to the ASL proposals, after the letter that the Commissioner had sent, did you say to put them on hold? Was that what was in your speech? It's just with regard, if that's the case, then the budget contains savings, or the SNP proposal contains savings. Are they coming out at this stage, therefore it'll not add up with regard to that?
No, they will actually. We can actually achieve a balanced budget today if we take out the first year's savings. That's what everyone said. That's what we need. We need a recess. If the leader was off her mind to have a recess.
Sorry, and can you, before you answer that, you just come through the chair. Ivor?
It's just with regard to this table document, the Supporting Learner Service Review alternative option is actually 354,000. Now, if we're not doing that, that 354,000 would have to be addressed somewhere else. It was just, I maybe didn't pick it up, but whereabouts was it? Just for my own information.
Okay, Andy.
Well, actually, that was exactly why we'd have to have a small recess, because we'd be moving into, getting everyone to talk off the same hymn sheet, frankly. And we would then identify the savings, because there is wriggle room right across the budget here for things to change.
Okay, Colin.
I seek clarification. Are the SNP moving their own budget, or are they not moving their own budget? I think we need clarification of that. I'm not entirely clear what he's moving. He seems to have moved his own budget and then amended it. Can we find out whether the SNP are moving their own budget or not?
No. Could you give us clarification on that? Could you give us clarification on that? Are you moving the budget you've tabled? Are you moving the budget you've tabled or not?
It's a series of amendments to your budget.
So you're withdrawing your budget and you're moving just amendments?
We always put it in as amendments to your budget, because we agree we've got 90% of it.
Colin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's clear then. I think what the SNP are doing is moving the budget, which was obviously circulated to all members at the beginning of the week. And it is by definition an amendment, because it is a completely different budget. And I think it's worth reflecting on the two differences in the two budgets that we've got in front of us. The first, the most obvious difference, is that the Labour proposals will increase the education budget by £500,000 more than the SNP budget. There's a £1.6 million increase in education contained within the Labour budget. There's a £1.1 million increase contained within the SNP budget. So the immediate difference straight away is a £500,000 cut in education, is the first amendment. There's no provision whatsoever within the SNP budget to take forward the living wage. There's very little provision within the SNP budget to take forward the anti-poverty strategy, with the exception of reference to advisory services, even though we don't know the outcome of the anti-poverty strategy yet. The additional funding being put in by the Labour budget, up to £1 million a year from next year, could more than cover any additional support required within advisory services if that's identified by the strategy. The SNP budget does not include a taxi card scheme. We know the existing taxi card scheme will come to an end in March. The SNP budget proposes to scrap the taxi card scheme, which will impact on some of the most vulnerable people in our communities. There's no provision. Well, we've got a budget table with the SNP, Jane, if you'd let me finish. There is no provision within the SNP budget to take forward our proposals around family centres. There's no provision within the SNP budget to take forward additional support we've put out for those who suffer from dementia. And there's no provision within the SNP budget to establish a contingency fund for school transport. So that's the reality of what we've got in front of us from the SNP. I acknowledge they're being tough on coffee machines, and I don't use the coffee machine, and we can take the coffee machine out if we like. Frankly, that's an operational issue, that's an efficiency saving, it's not a policy decision, but that's effectively what we've got in front of us. Two budgets, one very different from the other, and I'll be quite happy to move to support the administration's budget.
Okay, we've got two budgets in front of us. Sorry?
Thanks, Chair. I was under the assumption, Chair, that we were going to have a recess, and we seem to have suddenly got into a discussion about the whole thing.
That one was asked for. I didn't say it was, I didn't give that anyway. But you know, we've got two budgets in front of us.
Chair, could I have a point of...
Yep, sure.
I put forward a motion. It wasn't totally miles apart from what Councillor Ferguson was proposing alterations in his budget. Is my motion competent or not?
No, I ruled your motion out on the basis of the education decision that you related to. Okay. Right, okay. Everybody's wanting a recess, so we'll have a recess to have a look at the... I'm sorry. Right. A recess for how long to have a look at it? We'll have... Sorry? Right, we'll be back at 12 o'clock. Back at 12 o'clock, thanks. Thanks for that. Alex, can you kind of summarise where we are just now?
Thanks, Leader. I'll do my best. Leader, you, seconded by the Deputy Leader, have moved the administration budget as circulated to all members. There has been a proposed amendment by Councillor Scobie, seconded by Councillor Forster. Councillor Forster, seconded by Councillor Scobie. My apologies, gentlemen. And that's the effect that you don't implement the ASL proposals in the current financial year. I think maybe we need to allow the members to give you some...
We put that money in just now, and we await clarification from the Commissioner for Children. The ongoing budget settlements in Holyrood, not Wood, Rood.
I'm not sure that's an amendment. I'm not being awkward with you, Councillor Forrest, but I'm not sure that's an amendment to what the administration are proposing, given that they will not be implementing these savings until August, September of the current year. I think that's the point that the leader's seeking clarification on. But could we leave that just now to go to the SNP budget, if that's okay with you, Leader? Councillor Ferguson has proposed the SNP budget. He's then mentioned that he's prepared to make certain amendments to the SNP budget. I think we need clarification as to whether, I think the proposal was that the savings on ASL be removed. The point I would make to Councillor Ferguson is if he removes that saving, he needs to find a commensurate way of balancing the budget. I think, Leader, what I'm trying to do is to tease out of members. There's been much said this morning. I'm trying to tease out of members exactly what it is and what their motions are, and then perhaps you would be in a position to consider whether you're prepared to accept the proposals that are coming forward, whether you think that your budget already makes allowance for them. Can I say to members, the use of the Children's Commissioner not to take a decision, in my mind, is not a competent way to go forward. The Children's Commissioner put an opinion to the Chief Executive. The Chief Executive clearly provided the Children's Commissioner with information which he may or may not have before he wrote the letter to the Chief Executive, but it's clear that this Council has complied with all the legal requirements on it in determining the ASL and taking it forward. It's been the subject of several reports to the Education Committee, and if I can quote to members, just to give them absolute clarity, the decision taken by the Education Committee on the 25th of November was that they agreed to support the preferred option B to develop an area-based model for supporting learning which will ensure a consistency of approach across the region. In so doing, they noted that this would require to be subject to the budgetary process and would be subject to development by political groups. What the administration has done is gone forward and followed option B as considered appropriate by the Education Committee. If another group is proposing to follow an alternative option, there were two options before you, A and B. I would suggest that you've actually got to look at those and come up with an alternative option rather than just let's defer the whole thing because the Children's Commissioner has written a letter. And I'm sorry, I'm not being political, and neither should the Children's Commissioner be.
Okay, I'll let Andy.
Thanks, Leader. Our budget is published, submitted in due time at 6 p.m. on Monday, right, with one small amendment. With one small amendment, Alec. Well, we offered you the opportunity to consider something earlier this morning, and to withdraw the first year savings in ESL. The one small amendment we've got to the public's budget is that we intend to stick by that proposal we made to you this morning and amend our budget to remove year one 354,000 in ESL savings by applying the remaining balance of unallocated policy development money of 165,000 and increasing our target for road repair savings by 189,000. Assuming you're prepared to accept amendments to budgets, we will arrange for our updated amendments to be circulated. Otherwise, our budget as it stands.
Can you say that again, please?
Slowly.
I beg your pardon?
Can you say that again? I didn't pick up everything you were saying. If you try and speak into the mic a bit, so that it's probably me and my hearing, but I can't hear, you know.
Okay. Our budget position is still the one that was published in due time at 6 p.m. on Monday evening. Okay, with one small amendment or one amendment. And Leader, we offered you the opportunity this morning to withdraw the first year savings at ASL. We intend to stick by that proposal and therefore amend our budget to remove year one's 354,000 ASL saving by applying the remaining balance of unallocated policy development money of 165,000 and increasing our target for road repair savings by 189,000. I'm assuming that you're prepared to accept the amendments to budgets. We will arrange, obviously, for that in writing to be circulated. and the rest of our budget remains as published.
Okay, Colin and Willie.
To say, Leader, it's the first time I've ever seen a group amend their own budget because they want to amend their own budget. But can I just seek clarification? The SNP budget does not include the £500,000 contingency fund from the Labour group in case there are additional pressures, for example, a young person with additional needs moving into the region. That is not included in the SNP budget, I'm presuming. The bigger increase in the cut in repairs, can I just clarify that you're also going ahead, or you're also opposing the extra £500,000 in the infrastructure budget and the Labour group budget for road repairs? So that's a cut on top of that. Can I just clarify that as well? And can we just clarify that, obviously, as a result of this proposal, you plan to scrap the taxi card scheme that obviously comes to an end in March, and you don't have any additional funding for that? Can we just get clarification on that?
Would you like to clarify them points?
Leader, our budget is as written, and with that one small amendment. No further comment.
Okay, Willie.
Yeah, Chair, and we did seek the advice of governance who has come back to us. What I seconded in the amendment was not to take the savings in the first year and to use the 500k as identified in the Labour budget under contingency to offset that savings, but not to take it in the first year. And I would ask that you do take that as the amendment, Chair, to your budget.
Chair, just for the fullest of information, are any of the savings that are not being taken in the first year going to have a significant impact on the second year savings because they might not be able to be implemented? Therefore, it's another change to the budget that we have in front of us, because it might be a half-year saving rather than a full-year saving, so the 900,000 in year 2 can't actually be taken. And could maybe the officers advise us if there's any issues with that?
I'll ask Paul.
Sorry. Thank you. So my understanding is that the proposals that have come forward for adjustments this morning, they have not proposed to adjust any of the figures in years 2 and 3 of the budget proposals. I think there may be a concern, particularly the ASL proposal, about the achievability of the 900,000 second year saving if that proposal is delayed at this stage. But I don't know the detail of how much of a reduction that year 2 saving there would be at this stage.
Okay, Alec. Sorry, Jane.
Leader, would you be kind enough to explain exactly or to elaborate on the Deputy Leader's remarks concerning the template 6? And I actually concur with my fellow elected members' feelings about these templates, because I was sure that I had read somewhere in your templates that you had put in that further options would be provided for members to consider the inclusion of all leisure and sports facilities across the region. I was sure I had read that somewhere, but then I couldn't find it afterwards. So I think it's quite important to get clarification as to what is meant by that. Are you proposing, I would like to know when that is going to be done?
If you look at the change in our council paper, and if you look at 6, it gives you the details there. It's on page 10. The bottom few lines.
Yes, that's absolutely what I read before. But I'm actually seeking clarification because, after all, the Deputy Leader did, I think, probably rather suggest that if some of us didn't vote the way that you wanted us to vote, that we might not see that proposal come forward. That's the impression that I was left with, and I don't think the public would like to hear that. I actually rather deplore that. I think we ought to be given the options.
That isn't what we said.
I think we should be given the options and given the timetable,
Councillor
please.
Thompson.
That was not what I said, neither did I imply it. If you believe that I did, then that is your opinion. It is certainly not mine.
Okay,
Leader, might I have a timetable then, please, for that?
Sorry? Well, that'll be worked out, yep. Okay.
That's, I think we can...
Yep.
Leader, you currently have before you a motion, an amendment and a counter-amendment. The motion is by yourself, Leader, seconded by the Deputy Leader, and that is to adopt the administration budget as submitted this morning or last Friday. The amendment is by Councillor Scobie, seconded by Councillor Foster, and that is an amendment to the budget to the effect that there is no saving projected on ASL at present, pending clarification of information from the Scottish Government and the Commissioner for Children, and that the budget, the balancing figure be used from the £500,000 contingency which you have provided. The counter amendment by Councillor Ferguson, seconded I think by Councillor Geddes, if my memory serves me correctly, was that the budget as proposed by the Scottish National Party and tabled and before members today be adopted subject to the removal of the projected savings of £354,000 on ASL and an adjustment to savings in relation to a contingency and an increased saving on roads maintenance. Is that correct? Do we have that, sir? Thank you. In the normal course of events, Leader, you would vote the counter-amendment against the amendment, and the winner of the counter-amendment against the amendment would be voted against the motion.
I think there's some clarification, Ivor.
Chair, we heard that we don't know what the knock-on effects of the amendment to the first year. Are we just going to be voting on a one-year budget now because that 900,000 may not be deliverable? Now, we need to know that. The officer said that knock-on effects haven't been identified, but may be there. So I think we need to have the fullest information before we can take a decision on this.
Leader, I think, I don't want to cut across you, but I think only the SNP group could clarify that. I don't think you can ask an officer to second guess where commensurate savings will be made. It may be the SNP are only proposing a one-year budget.
Chair, that was what I was hoping to get an answer from the proposer and seconder.
Okay, Andy?
Budget is as published, sir.
What did you say?
Budget as published. Go on.
Is it a one-year budget or a three-year indicative budget? And what are the figures for year 2 and 3 on ASL savings?
There are sufficient wriggle room in our budget figures. Our credit card isn't maxed out, put it that way.
We just get clarification there for what are the savings in years 2 and 3 on ASL budgets, and if it is a remaining figure that's contained within your draft budget, just clarify where the money comes from, and I think we need to know that. I mean, this could have been sorted out ages ago.
Andy? Rob? Sorry.
Thank you very much, Leader. Earlier on, we were told repeatedly and at length that the budget is constantly subject to change in years 2 and years 3. That was the reason that you ruled incompetent a very reasonable motion that we had earlier on. If it's good enough for you, it's good enough for us.
Paul, can I just advise on that?
Can I just clarify the question, please, Leader?
Is it competent, what's been said by the...
One thing I would point out is, apologies, I think it's probably more for the group themselves to say, but I'd maybe point out that there is unallocated funding and flexibility within years 2 and 3 within the SNP budget proposals, so they could take that into consideration if that was their desire.
Okay, right. Move to the vote.
Leader, with the greatest respect, I don't think I'm going to be alone round this room in not being absolutely clear about what I'm about to vote on.
Okay, we'll have a recess for another 15 minutes. And perhaps we can get some papers on it.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Could we maybe just have a clarification exactly the changes in the SNP proposals?
That'll be for the SNP if they can pass around.
If we can please have that, it would be
if they can
very
pass around the
helpful, because
papers.
I'm a bit baffled about the whole thing. Thanks.
Right. Come to order, please. Okay.
Thanks, Leader. My understanding is that the SNP group have now produced a budget over 3 years which balances. Perhaps, Leader, you already know you've got a motion, an amendment and a counter amendment. Perhaps the acting leader of the SNP group could clarify exactly what the changes are so that members don't have to read through two documents at the same time.
Andy, sorry.
With your leave, Leader, we've got a motion and an amendment and a counter amendment. My understanding, in fact, it was already a decision taken by you, Leader, to rule, in fact, the proposals put forward by Councillors Foster and Scobie.
No, it was re-explained and reworded, so it's not.
So in other words, it's been reinstated and it's now been deemed competent?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Andy.
Thanks for clarifying that, Leader. Okay, I'm conscious it's a lengthy morning. I've done my best, obviously, here, and we've done our best to be patient, and as everyone else has to accommodate all the way through here. You'll see from the proposals we've circulated, bearing in mind Ivor's concerns about years 2 and 3, we have reflected the implications of our year 1 proposal for those future years. The sole consequence is a reduction in our unallocated funds. This would always have been the case, as you yourself observed earlier on, Leader, but I'm keen to be as accommodating as possible. So the things are there, it's in black and white for everyone to see what the SNP proposal is in terms of additional support for learning.
Yep. Thanks, Leader. I assume members are ready to proceed to the vote. Councillor Maitland, I'll defer to Councillor Maitland, Leader.
I thought we were going to get a bit of paper.
Councillor Maitland, you can speak.
I thought we were going to get a bit of paper. I haven't got a bit of paper. None of the independent.
That's our understanding as well.
That's what the recess was for. That's what the recess was for. I says you can get the information off the SNP.
Oh, hang on. It's just, there you go, better late than never.
Okay, everybody's got the revised sheet. Do you want to just explain whereabouts, just for clarity? So, Ian.
Thanks, Chair. The changes are on year 1. Target carriageway repairs goes up to 389. The 165 that was left in unallocated policy development, and the 189, which that carriageway repairs figure has gone up to, compensate for the removal of the 354 in the first year, effectively putting that back a year. Consequently, year 2 becomes, instead of 900, becomes 354, and year 3 remains 900.
Thank you, Leader. You have a motion which is the administration budget as submitted. You have an amendment which is by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Scobie, and that's to the effect that the ASL projected saving is not incorporated in the budget at present, and that the £500,000 which had been set aside for contingencies be used to balance that figure. The counter-amendment is by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Geddes, and that is the budget now proposed by the Scottish National Party group, which has just been circulated to members for clarity just now. Leader, are you ready to proceed to the vote? Yep. Can I remind members that you're voting for the counter-amendment against the amendment? The counter-amendment is Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Geddes, and the amendment is Councillor Foster and Councillor Scobie. Leader?
Abstain.
Deputy Leader?
Abstain.
Councillor Bell?
Counter.
Councillor Blake?
Abstain.
Councillor Brodie?
Counter.
Councillor Ian Carruthers?
Counter.
Councillor Karen Carruthers?
Counter.
Councillor Carson is...
Abstain.
It's an abstention. Councillor Davidson?
Counter.
Councillor Dempster?
Abstain.
Councillor Dick?
Counter.
Councillor Dryborough?
Abstain.
Councillor Ferguson?
Counter.
Councillor Forster?
Amendment.
Councillor Geddes?
Counter amendment.
Councillor Yen?
Counter.
Councillor Hislop?
Abstain.
Councillor Lever? Councillor McCaughtrey?
Abstain.
Councillor McClung?
Counter.
Councillor McComb?
Counter.
Councillor McGregor?
Abstain.
Councillor McKee?
Abstain.
Councillor Maitland?
Counter-amendment.
Councillor Mayo?
Counter amendment.
Councillor Marshall?
Abstain.
Councillor Martin?
Abstain.
Councillor Nicholl?
Abstain.
Councillor Ogilvie?
Abstain.
Councillor Peacock?
Abstain.
Councillor Prentice?
Counter.
Councillor Scobie?
History repeating itself for the second time. Amendment 2 was voting for it.
Councillor Smith?
Abstain.
Councillor Stitt? Councillor Syme?
Abstain.
Councillor Tate?
Abstain.
Councillor Stephen Thompson?
Counter.
Councillor Tuckfield?
Counter.
Councillor Witts?
Counter amendment.
Councillor Wood?
Counter.
Councillor Wiper?
Abstain.
The counter-amendment is carried by 18 votes to 2 with 21 abstentions. Yes, yeah, will do. We'll just get Paul to confirm both budget legal before we go to the next one, okay? Leader, you now are in a position where you would be voting for the motion against the counter-amendment. That is the motion proposed by the administration group, and the counter-amendment, which is the budget proposed by the SNP group. Leader, you might want to just check.
Both budgets competent?
Thanks, Leader. Yes, both budgets are legal and comply with the requirements of the Council agreed budget principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Now proceed to the vote. Leader?
Motion.
Deputy Leader?
Motion.
Councillor Bell?
Counter.
Councillor Blake?
Motion.
Councillor Brodie?
Amendment.
Counter.
It's the counter-amendment, Councillor Brodie. You're either voting for the motion or the counter-amendment. Thank you. Councillor Ian Carruthers?
Counter.
Councillor Karen Carruthers?
Counter.
Councillor Davidson?
Counter.
Councillor Dempster?
Motion.
Councillor Dick?
Counter.
Councillor Dryborough?
Motion.
Councillor Ferguson.
Counter.
Councillor Forster.
Abstain.
Councillor Geddes.
Counter amendment.
Councillor Yen.
Cantor.
Councillor Hislop.
Motion.
Councillor Lever. Councillor McCoughtry.
You missed out Councillor Carson, but I'm voting for the motion.
Councillor Carson's no present, sir. Does Councillor Carson feel that he's been in the meeting long enough to participate in the vote?
I should still be asked whether what my vote is, I would have thought.
Very good, sir. Councillor Carson.
Motion.
Councillor McClung.
Counter.
Councillor McComb.
Counter amendment.
Councillor McGregor.
Motion.
Councillor McKee.
Motion.
Councillor Maitland.
Counter amendment.
Councillor Mayo.
Motion.
Councillor Marshall.
Motion.
Councillor Martin.
Motion.
Councillor Nicholl. Councillor Ogilvie.
Motion.
Councillor Peacock.
Motion.
Councillor Prentice.
Counter.
Councillor Scobie. Councillor Smith. Councillor Stitt. Councillor Syme.
Motion.
Councillor Tate.
Motion.
Councillor Stephen Thompson.
Counter.
Councillor Tuckfield.
Counter amendment.
Councillor Witts.
Counter amendment.
Councillor Wood.
Counter.
Councillor Wiper.
Motion.
Two. Oh, it's 22. Because Carson voted for the motion. So then it's just down to the recommendation. Just say what we've agreed today, just for minuting purposes, what we've agreed today is the revenue budget, blah blah. We've noted this and we've agreed that. Leader, the votes have been cast. For the motion, there were 22 votes. For the counter amendment, 17 with 2 abstentions. The motion is therefore carried, Leader.
Okay, just for the minutes on the recommendations, we're noting the revenue budget and we're agreeing the revenue budget 2015-16, the indicative revenue budget for 2016-17 and 2017-18, and the capital budget for 2015-16 to 2017-18 as contained in the document Changing Our Council, Changing Dumfries and Galloway, submitted by the administration group, including the policy development proposal, saving options, future service reviews and the budget process for 2016-17 detailed in the document. Thank you. Can I just say, but before I finish this item, can I place on record my thanks to a number of people involved in the development of this budget, in particular Paul Garrett and Karen McNish from our finance team, who provided impartial and professional advice and support to all groups within the council. Can I thank all directors and their teams for the work they did, providing a range of templates, both for savings but also capital spending and policy development spending. I think we should place on record our thanks to the many people who took part in the extensive discussions and consultations around the budget. But in particular, I want to thank all our council staff. As we have seen during the budget process, 43% of our revenue budget goes to our staffing costs for those who provide the services our communities rely on every day. That means when it comes to savings, our staffing levels are inevitably affected. Despite this, and despite the fact that the only time they may read about the work they do is in the negative media coverage, it is a testimony to the commitment to public service of our staff that they continue to provide such a high level of service to the people of Dumfries and Galloway under increasingly challenging circumstances, and that is something we should all recognise. Thank you. If we can move on to, if we can find the papers now. If we can move on to item 7, which is the shape of the council, director's post, support by Chief Executive. The full council meeting on 18th of December agreed a programme of change to deliver the new organisational arrangements for the council. This includes the process for the appointment to the 4 directors' posts, and these job descriptions and person specifications are attached in as appendix to this report. Paul Clarkin is here somewhere, I think, is here to answer members' questions. Paul, do you have anything to add to the report?
Leader, actually, the details contained within the report. Nothing really to add.
Sorry?
The details contained within the report.
Is it switched on, is it?
Yeah.
Can everybody hear?
Details within the report, Leader.
Okay. Members? Andy?
Thanks, Ronnie. Obviously, we're in support of this because we've been part of a process like everyone else in this chamber. The only question I've kind of got at Paul or the Chief is that I see under education and training that professional and management qualifications or recognised leadership qualifications are down as desirable rather than essential. Should we be moving, or what's the rationale for that as opposed to making them essential?
Leader, we've already got the essential criteria on the degree standard education, and that's pretty standard practice as far as appointment to posts at this level.
Graham?
Thanks, Leader. Certainly I welcome this report. I've got a few concerns, obviously, about experienced staff in the council, obviously filling posts over a period of time. A number of staff that have years of experience in the council here, and does concern me. It's not easy to train them over a period of time, so it'll be a sad loss to the council. But one thing that's not in this report here, I see, for members to view, or for the members of the public to see, there's no saving cost implication here, how much we would actually save on this project. But looking at, as I come from the private sector, as a business background, and we have a totally different process we're dealing with staff and reshaping businesses and whatnot. And my policy would be, if in this case, to save a lot of time, would be last in, first out. Regarding the savings costs?
Can you answer on the savings cost? Is that your last comment needs answer?
Certainly, Leader. The savings costs obviously won't emerge until we've got the various appointments made, and we'll know the costs at that stage. In terms of last in, first out, we have a duty to appoint on merit. Therefore, the process that we're advocating is through a defined matching process as previously agreed by the council for these instances.
Well, that's totally different to the private sector.
Sorry, I'll get you back in, Graham, if you come through the chair. Thanks. Graham?
Thank you again, Leader. Thank you very much. Obviously, it's totally different from the private sector, but I know any other private sectors in the United Kingdom or out the world that have that policy of last in, first out. I actually implement it myself. I'm quite... But why is it not adopted through the council?
Paul? Leader, the reference to last in, first out refers to processes leading to redundancy. The council has a specified policy of no redundancies, and therefore matching process is appropriate, given the council's stance on that.
Okay, Jane.
I think it would have been very helpful to have had actually information about salary levels. We're told that these are all these posts are going to be at Director 3 level, and I concur with what my fellow elected member was saying. We don't have any information here, it doesn't really help us here, about what the level of savings or what the level of increase indeed in costs, because I don't know. I've absolutely no idea whether this is going to mean an increase in salary or a decrease in salary. And I think we should actually know this, and I think the public would like to know it too. My understanding certainly has been in the past that salaries at this level are in the public domain. There's no secret. And I think we ought to actually see these. Another issue that I want to ask about is that we've got are these definitely all absolutely generic directors at Director 3 level? A long time ago, we had a problem with child protection, and I seem to remember that somebody is held accountable for child protection. I can't remember who actually carries the buck, whether it's the chief executive or the director of education and social work at that time, which is basically what is being covered in this particular post for children and lifelong learning. So I wonder if I could have some help about why we're not being given the information, which I think we should have here in the public domain, about whether or not this is going to be an increase. Because I don't know about other members, but I've felt had in the past over things which have happened, and suddenly I've discovered that I was paying 10, 12, 20,000 pounds more than I actually anticipated or thought I was doing, because I didn't know, wasn't given the information. So I think that we should have a bit more clarity put in front of us before we actually make any decision.
Paul?
Leader, the number of officers against the number of posts is 5 officers per 4 posts, so there will be a reduction of 1 salary level. We can't work that out in detail until we know who that officer actually is in precise terms. So we'll have an officer currently paid at director level in terms of potential saving.
Excuse me, Leader, that doesn't answer the question.
Gavin?
The salary scales that you're referring to are 96,243 to 99,747. 3 of the existing 5 posts are at that level. So for 3 there'd be no increase in salary. If subsequently 2 of the others were successful in the 1, there would be an increase in salary commensurate to the job size independently evaluated. But that would be reported to members, the decision of that in March, and the outcome of the matching process. But certainly for 3 of our directors at this point, subject to any appeal process, that would be straightforward matching to existing salary scales.
Okay, Alistair.
Thanks very much indeed, Leader. With your leave, sir, I'd like to get back to Paul's answer to the point that Councillor Ferguson made. You know, it may be standard practice, but I would have to say, Leader, with the greatest difference, that in my view, these Ds and these specifications, i.e. desirable, should be transferred across to the E column, essential. I'm sure I'm not the only member, Leader, that sat in this chamber several years ago and listened to an official that we're employed at the top tier, near the top tier, admitting quite candidly that he was by no means the finished article. And I would have thought at that level of salary that it's imperative that we do get the finished article. And to me, it's not unreasonable if you take the first one, for instance, professional or management qualification. This is a managerial type post. You should be making that, in fact, rather than desirable, essential.
Okay, I mean, this is why we're here, looking for members' direction, so we're happy to include that, I think. Yep. Happy to include that.
For them all, sir, please.
Andy?
Thanks very much, Ronnie. Just to get some clarification here, the actual jobs and the job descriptions and everything drawn up are then, am I right, subject to a job evaluation process, and that decides what band should go against it. It's not really a thing for members. What members decided, are we having the post or not, is my understanding, and the band will be commensurate with the agreed proper procedure. So just to assure members, I'm fairly certain I know the answer I'm going to get here, but I'm assuming we've gone through the proper job evaluation process.
If I could help, and then perhaps answer the second part of Councillor Maitland's question that she asked. Certainly, I think what Councillor Maitland was asking for was clarity on what the salary was, because we only refer to a band and for transparency. So I've just tried to be helpful in providing that, and certainly can provide any member with details of all the salary scales in the Council, so that in future make sure we include that moving forward. In relation to child protection, child protection is absolutely the responsibility of everyone, and it would fall under the remit as one of the responsibilities for leadership of this post. Statutory duties in relation to child protection still lie with the Chief Social Work Officer, and that post is in emerging structures. We'll come back to members of how that will fit within it. But this post, the job is to lead, and that extending, and in future, the management executive team that looks after all children's services, that also has a responsibility for child protection. So specific statutory duties will lie with the Chief Social Work Officer, and this post is to provide leadership and enablement of resources as directed by that professional advice. So it's not the specific post. The rest of it, the ultimate responsibility for child protection will lie with myself.
Okay, Andy.
I didn't get the assurance, but I'm assuming it was inherent in what Gavin said there. Yep.
Can you give us an idea of what the life expectancy of these changes are and when we'll see this council enter into a period of stability and continuity?
Thank you very much for that question, Councillor Wood. Yes, in the full council meeting we said that this structure is designed to last a minimum of 5 years to get us beyond the 3-year settlement and beyond the 5 years, and that any future structure needs to stand that test. Obviously, in determining member involvement, we have a paper coming to the ad hoc subcommittee. Friday, Alec? Yes, tomorrow, in which we could talk about the arrangements. But no, one of the tests will be any structural proposals in this and supporting it. One of the tests for elected members will be, will this last through 5 years and potential further cuts from Westminster or Edinburgh that we would have to take through. So we're designing a process for a minimum of 5 years, which I believe is good industry standard.
Okay, Ian.
Thanks, Leader. Let's make it a bit closer. I'm getting a wee bit confused with the potential saving when it comes to these posts, because my understanding is there's 5 places, 4 posts, but we've got no compulsory redundancy in place. That's obviously a policy that we have in place. So therefore, if the 4, I would imagine through the matching process that 4 people will get matching at the job, there's a potential that we've got somebody on the director's wage moping around for the next 2 years, sweep the corridors almost. So how does that square peg fit into that hole?
Thank you for that. We actually, if we go back to the paper of full council, we have 6 posts. This is 6 posts going into 4. We have 5 eligible candidates into 4 posts, and rightly under the council's policy of no compulsory redundancy, they would need to find a job of equivalent pay grading within that period. Those are individual discussions. I don't want to preempt any process which I'm leading. Those are individual discussions I would need to have with anyone who is unable to secure a post in the matching process about their future career. But those are conversations that we would have to have at any level as we do a restructuring and matching. We have those conversations down at supervisory level, frontline staff level, and there are protections allocated to it. But it's 6 posts into 4, it's not 5. We just have 5 people in posts, because if members would remember, they chose not to fill the post of customer and community service and seconded Mr Haswell across, but the budget remained. So that budget is available to support the savings. So as soon as we move to this process, that budget will be an immediate saving from the process in April.
Okay, Ian, you want back in?
I mean, I understand that it is the 6 posts. Community customer service, that was like a year and a half ago. That saving was made. It wasn't implemented fully at that time. We get to this stage now, the decision is quite clear cut. The post is now removed, but it's been in place for quite a while. I still think there'll be a potential for an ongoing cost in this, and I just struggle how to get my head round about that, how we actually achieve a real cost saving.
I can assure you that there will be a real saving, 6 to 4, even if it's that we carry 5. But actually, those are discussions and hard discussions. None of this will be easy, and as we move further down, these will be difficult to do. But I can guarantee there will be savings. But we actually have to act fairly within the policies agreed with this council and negotiated with the trade unions.
Stephen.
Thank you, Leader. On the top of page 37, it gives an example where the Director of Corporate Services role has a difference to the others in that that person will lead and direct all functional areas, including information technology, yet the information technology use and skill in is not an essential characteristic. I'm just wondering if that's something that we could maybe look at.
Paul?
Because directors are responsible for multifunctional teams, sometimes that responsibility is vested within other officers' job roles, and that's not unusual, for example, for heads of service to carry that particular technical responsibility where the director carries out the leadership function.
Jane?
Again, I go back to whether we have agreed this already. I actually don't have any particular view on this, but in the past, members have made decisions about who is appointed to these particular posts. Where are we at the moment with this? Have we decided that this is to be definitely done within the council as opposed to members being involved with this? Where are we with this? I think members should be completely clear that if we simply go along with this, at the moment, we have no input into this. So I just want to be absolutely clear about this because, for example, hesitate to say it, but if the shape of services and how we deliver services is done differently, will that have an impact upon any of the arrangements that we make today?
No. Obviously, the shape of the service below will come through member discussions, but we've agreed the 4 functional blocks, and just to remind members that the members agreed to apply the Council's matching policy as a direct recommendation at full Council before Christmas. So therefore, you agreed to this process. So therefore, that's what we're following. We've agreed to the functional blocks, and while there may be minor changes between, any fundamental, I don't envisage any fundamental changes, but if that was the case, then that would be tested through the member involvement in the steering group. But certainly, looking across, I don't see any functional change. If there was significant functional change moving forward by, say, legislative change, we would then have to revisit the structure again to displace, i.e. movements on further centralisation of education or combination perhaps of children's services with the health service. But we would consider it at that point. That's why I think the role of the elected member in the steering group is essential, to be questioning and looking across the whole spectrum of the organisational structure at that point. But at this point, members agreed the blocks. These are the blocks. I would not see significant movement in the structure beyond that. It's certainly not within the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay, we've got Ian back in here.
Thanks very much for letting me back in. I suppose it was the point that James brought up there as well in regards to member involvement. I think at director level there should be more direct member involvement in whichever. I know we've agreed back in December a matching process, but we're excluded when it comes to any specific decision making other than it coming back with a fait accompli to the March committee. I think it should have been with more member involvement there. In regards to the other point, it's out of my head because it was about 3 speakers ago, Leader. I think no, it's more of a statement in regards to. I think there should be more involvement in regards to this. It'll come back as a fait accompli in March, and this is the decision that's been made, and it's director level. I think there should be direct member involvement here. I think there's a lack of member involvement when it comes to different. If it was at the lower tiers, but you're looking at directors here. There should definitely. Councillor McCockery used to get. I've heard him saying about 1,000 times an officer-led council when it comes to this. And I don't know if that's what he's going to say there. He's trying to get his hands up, but he's constantly going on about that. So, I mean, I think members should be involved when it comes to appointments of directors.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks, Leader. My first one is just as a follow-on to Councillor Carr's first input. The director, as you say, we have 5 candidates, 4 posts, and it's been explained that the unfortunate candidate will be spoken to regarding their future employment within the council, etc., etc. If the unlucky candidate doesn't actually get a job and he decides that his future employment is still within the council, at what grade is he going to be paid, and how long does he get paid at that grade? And as the second one, at 3.5, it says in the event of any significant amendments required to the job descriptions as a result of comments received today, it may be necessary to have the job evaluation outcomes reaffirmed prior to the appointments of the post. I take it the job evaluations have been done, and that if there's any change in the payment grade as a result of reaffirming of the job evaluation, that'll come back to full council so that we can give our views on that.
Paul?
In terms of the what post and for how long, we would look to give the affected officer a job at the same level, and obviously part of those discussions would be various options. As Chief Executives indicated, those would be very difficult and personal discussions. In terms of the second part of it, we have evaluated the jobs, and the jobs have been independently evaluated at Director 3.
Right, I'll take Tom.
Thanks, Chairman. I was trying to point out that we had a meeting on the 18th of December where we had a full paper before us. All these issues were agreed. We're going back over stuff that was agreed before. If members cannot recall what they decided on the 18th of December, it was remitted to the Chief Executive to take this away. Right? We're going back over old ground again. You know, if members can't remember that far back, they ought to take a tumble at themselves.
Either first, I'll let you in.
Chair, similar comments to Councillor McCaughtrey. We did agree this. I think the minute's actually in the front of the papers here that tells you about the process. However, slight concerns that my understanding was the matching process was to get the best person for the job. Now, I would have thought that that may mean there's a post there, hypothetically, that doesn't match anyone. Therefore, there may be an option, so it could be the case that we actually don't have 4 from 5, but it could be 3 from the 5. And I would like to think that that's in there as well, that if no one matches in, then we do go out. My understanding, that was part of the process as well.
Absolutely, and I think I can recall at full council explaining this, that the process, and this is why the conversations are difficult, and why, you know, I thank Alex for sitting in through the conversation, that you know, as someone directly affected by this process, that actually the matching process that we are talking about is a test of competency. We obviously have existing pools under the agreement with the trade unions, and we've agreed those pools with the trade unions. It does not necessarily mean that even if you are the only candidate in the pool, you will automatically match into that job. These have been difficult, complex discussions with the trade union, so it could well be that we appoint no one. It could well be that we appoint 4. It could well be we appoint 3. The results of that I will bring a full explanation to elected members at the time, but it does not prejudge that anyone who is in the pool is eligible to match directly into the job, and that is contrary to the processes that are available in other parts of the public sector. So therefore, you know, and we agreed with the trade unions that this needed to be done at the top, because that is the process that would be applied right down through the organisational change, right down to the frontline staff as we move through this process, frontline supervisors. So, you know, I have to do at the top what we agreed with trade unions is the process that we move forward. So yes, it does not. No one is guaranteed a job from this. There'll be a very stringent test of competency in relation to the job descriptions that members have put in front of us.
Okay, Andy, last.
Thanks very much, Leader. Much of what I was going to say has actually been asked and answered. I think the one thing we need to get through ourselves here is there is an agreed robust process for this, right? And we need to abide by that process. We're not given a fait accompli when it comes forward on the 26th of March. We're getting an outcome that is actually gone through that fair and robust process. There's a subtle difference between a fait accompli means something just been foisted on you. This has gone through a process, and I really think we've got a bit of a problem here, and it's come from all parts of the chamber. We're in danger of trying to revisit things from the past, as Tom McCaughtrey so rightly said. We should move on to actually the business at hand here, and that's agreeing these templates.
Okay, I'll take your advice. Moving on to the recommendations. Can 2.1 can approve the job descriptions? 2.2, no, I'm taking no more speakers. You've already been on.
Leader, I would agree with that, because I've got information that say that these jobs will be tied in for 3 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask you. Just a second, Ian. Right, can you answer that?
That would largely depend on the officer and what other options they might be considering. So, subject to those discussions, that level of detail would be worked out.
Leader, with your leave, so if the officer who wasn't successful decided he wanted to stay in the council, his protection would last until he left the council. That really was what I wanted to know.
Valid agreed. Alistair's the chief executive before. Yeah.
As amended. Thanks.
As amended. We've already done that. But I think that was one of the first things we did. But Ivor?
No, that was the point I was going to clarify, that the first one was as amended.
Right, last time I'm listening to you. Right. Move to the recommendations. Approve the 2.1. Can I approve? 2.2 note. 2.3 note. And 2.4 agree to receive further reports. Okay, moving on to item 8. Moving on to item 8, Scrutiny and Performance Committee Review, Procurement and Commissioning Report by Assistant Chief Executive. This report puts forward findings and the 14 recommendations from the Scrutiny and Performance Committee in relation to Phase 1 of the Procurement and Commissioning Review. The recommendations are contained on pages 4 and 5, and I particularly welcome the proposal to establish a dedicated elected member forum to give leadership and oversight of the procurement. The intent, and also the intention to update Council standing orders, including the setting of thresholds for involvement of the procurement team, the promotion of the living wage and fair trade, and the maximising of community benefit clauses. And the intention to strengthen partnership approach between procurement and economic development, and the recommendation to ensure that effective arrangements are in place for payment of subcontractors, including, for example, project bank accounts, to afford local companies the maximum security possible. The chairman of the committee, Ivor Hislop, is going to present a report. Can I therefore hand over to Ivor?
Thank you, Leader. The report before us today is the first part of our procurement and commissioning report. Procurement is not just about purchasing, it is an essential part of our day-to-day business. In 2013-14, Dumfries and Galloway Council spent £168 million on goods, services and work. That is why it is so important to get it right. Our recommendations are significant. By making these changes, not only would we deliver financial savings to the Council, but importantly, we will support local businesses and deliver best value. The recommendations include to review the resourcing arrangements for a Council procurement team. This will give us a team of people with the right skills in the right place. The recommendations will be reported to Policy and Resources Committee as to how that will be established. We would establish a dedicated elected member forum. This will give leadership and oversight of procurement, as you've already stated. Through the elected member forum, improve the presentation of information and reports to elected members. Mandate the use of PCOS across all council services by mid-2016, following the appropriate communication of information and education for suppliers. Update the council's standing orders. Continue to use the use of open book accounting to improve transparency and project management for all capital projects delivered within the council. Throughout the review investigation, we have listened to and had the opportunity to question a number of witnesses and officers who shared their expertise and experience with us. As well as receiving a number of very useful and focused presentations from our council officers, outside agencies were invited. They included Scotland Excel, who gave us an overview of national arrangements to secure efficiencies and savings in procurement across all Scottish councils. The Chamber of Commerce and Federation of Small Businesses were represented and gave us their perspective of operating as a business in Dumfries and Galloway. We also made site visits to Renfrewshire, East Renfrewshire, North Ayrshire councils and video conferenced with Aberdeen City Council. During the visits, we received presentations and put questions to senior procurement staff around the subject matters of elected member involvement, staffing resources, use of Public Contract Scotland, their improvement plans and strategies, how they use quick quote and what kind of engagement they have with local businesses. Using this strong evidence base, together with a number of background documents, has helped us to shape our decisions and recommendations which are now presented to full Council for their consideration. I would like to thank and acknowledge the members of the committee who have been involved during the review programme. Their efforts and time have given us the ability to produce a number of strong evidence-based recommendations, ensuring that procurement is best placed to deliver for our Council going forward. I would also like to thank all officers from the Council who took part and all outside agencies that came along and gave us that evidence. Some of it was frank and to the point and was refreshing that we were able to ask those questions and get good answers from them. So it is with great pleasure that I commend these findings and recommendations to full Council for approval.
Thank you. Members? Ian?
Yeah, I'm more than pleased to see this report coming forward. I think again it's one of these ones that's a testament to the first and both the first, second, and the current administration that it's proceeded through to this point. It has given us financial savings in the past 3 budgets, and the fact that there's a structure to it now is extremely pleasing. I wanted to ask about something on the objectives. So when we're looking at objective 4 and 5, when we're talking about capital projects and the monitoring, is there a set process to this? Who from the Council does the monitoring? What evidence is then produced to say that that monitoring has been done and it's of a satisfactory basis? Ultimately, on what evidence are, say reassurances after the completion of a capital project of the adequacy of quality and material workmanship and completion? How can we see as members if something comes up with a capital project, then in fact actually the monitoring was done by somebody properly qualified from this Council and those assurances can be relied upon?
Ivor, do you want to take it? That's for the members, is it?
I think one of the issues we have is the fact that we don't have consistency across the Council, and that is one of the recommendations that's coming forward, how we can actually make sure that there is a template that can be brought to members who can actually say, yes, that's happened and that's happened. So that's sort of contained within the contract arrangements under point 9 to improve contract supplier management arrangements. So we are looking to do it to make sure that members can get involved through the forum, the members' forum, whichever we decide that to be when Policy and Resources decide what they want. And therefore they would bring it through and they would monitor the contracts going forward so that we can actually address some of the concerns that you have.
Okay, Willie.
Yeah, Chair, I'm pleased to see coming forward item 5 in terms of the living wage. And while we have a motion already tabled on this specific issue, and no doubt will be taken at the next, or I hope it will be taken at the next full Council, I seek clarification on the word, the promotion of the living wage, and I welcome the report that no doubt will go along with the motion in consideration, but it's to look at that word promotion and just how legal it will be. Hopefully it will be legal for us to ensure that the living wage will be paid both for future contractors under procurement and looking also at it being retrospective to the contractors that have already been let. So it's to this point whether indeed that has been taken, any cognizance of that is going to be taken in terms of, rather than just the promotion, where we have the strength to maybe enforce that point. And I note in the brackets that there will be a working group of members to look at that, but it's to look at that more enforceably rather than just the promotion, but how we build that into our standing orders if the Council determine that's what we want to pursue.
The Council can promote at the moment. This group will look at all aspects of that. The Council can promote at the moment. We can't force And, obviously there's budgetary considerations and what we're doing as well. But we will, go through the process.
Thanks, Chair, for, and to say that as we currently can promote, and I take it from your reply that we will be looking at the whole concept of promotion to consider whether indeed we can enforce. And that may be for built into standing orders and for the council to take its decision on that. I do take that's what you actually mean, Chair.
Just to say that we hear where Councillor Scobie's coming from, but the legal state just now is that we can promote, and I would think once the legal state, if there are moves that we can actually go to a state where we can ask people to do that, that would be the time that standing orders would be changed. But we had to work under the current arrangement, so that's what's brought forward today.
Okay, Colin.
Thank you, Chair. I would take the council as a business, basically, that loses money. It's public money, it's funded by public money, and all the people we deal with in the private sector, I would imagine they are keeping their head above water or they wouldn't be in business. And I think for a business such as the council to dictate to private businesses what they pay their staff is arrogant, to say the least. It also will encourage a lot of people not to come forward and apply for council contracts. I know an awful lot of one-man bands and small businesses who won't come near the council because of the bureaucracy, red tape, etc., and this will just make matters worse.
Andy, then Colin.
Thanks very much, Leader. I think everyone in the chamber here were in agreement. It's a tremendous piece of work, and credit to everyone involved. The only one bit of clarification I would like, and this draws on some of the experience we've had in recent years in little pockets within the council. It does say on page 64, objective 1, they're looking at the roles and responsibilities of the staff and the training in that. Can we get some sort of assurance here that we're not going to fall back into the old trap where the person who has the vision then plans it, then commissions it, then awards it, and then monitors it themselves? And I think that's what they're trying to get at here, but could we just get assurance that is what we mean?
Yep, either.
Chair, I think what we're looking for is that the right person's in at the right place at the right time. Currently we have some people not there at the start who should be. I think that they come in slightly later than when they should be asked for a capital project. So the idea is actually to make sure that everyone who needs to be at the table when the project starts is there at the start, to make sure that all processes and if it's checking up to make sure the right projects on the table with what we want, is everything there so that we don't change things further down. Therefore the monitoring gets difficult because, well, actually we asked for a cat and we ended up with a dog. So make sure that if we're wanting a cat, we end up with a cat.
Okay, I've got Ian that's been waiting patiently, I've got Jim that's been waiting patiently, and I've got Colin, so I'll take Ian first.
Thanks. I'll be brief, Chairman. Involved in this, I'd like to first, and certainly on behalf of my group, is lay thanks to all members of the committee from the previous year to the members that are on it at the moment, back in 2012 up to now. It's been quite a very interesting, actually, a very interesting subject. Being able to drill into it, I managed to get to all the site visits when I came to the different councils, and Aberdeen City and Aberdeenshire was the conference call. That was a really interesting conversation to have as well. So I'd like to thank the members, but the people, I fully agree, we fully and wholeheartedly agree with the recommendations that have come forward, and I think we'll see benefits to the council both in savings and in actual the way we can bring services in at a better level as well as potentially cheaper. So with this new process in place, but the people I really like to thank, because they did a lot of work, and quite often it does go unnoticed, is particularly Lorna Meehan, Liz Manson and Gillian MacLeod. There was others, I think maybe Donna and such like was involved as well. So, but it's just the three I mentioned in the report, or that's the three I mentioned there, but there is further as well, just to lay on record the thanks to all the staff in particular.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's Jim next.
Thanks, Leader. On page 3 of page 61, the foreword by Ivor, paragraph 3, the first couple of lines certainly resonate with me, where it talks about procurement, an essential part of day-to-day business, and getting it right means it will support local businesses. Now, at the risk of causing Mr Haswell some discomfort, I've said before, I think we should be positively discriminating in favour of local businesses when we're seeking procurement to ensure that we support these people, and we do. And I know that there are recommendations contained within the paper that try to address that. But I'm keen to see that local businesses at every juncture get support as much as they can from this council to ensure they can provide services to us.
Okay, as he mentioned, Alex, I'll get him to respond appropriately.
Thanks, Leader. I have no discomfort with what's proposed here. I wholeheartedly, as monitoring officer, endorse the recommendations coming forward from the Scrutiny Committee.
Does that include positive discrimination, Leader?
We will look at that, Leader.
Colin.
I just want to pick up the point in the living wage. I mean, you won't be surprised to know I don't agree with Councillor Wiper. I mean, all the research shows that 2/3 of employers have reported a significant improvement when it comes to recruitment and retention when they've paid the living wage, and over 80% of employers have reported that paying the living wage actually enhances the quality of work of their staff. So actually paying the living wage is a good investment, and it's certainly one that enlightened businesses support. I know Councillor Scobie's left today. He couldn't bring himself to vote today for the living wage being taken forward, because obviously it was an important part of our budget today to put the resources in to look at ways in which we can work with suppliers. I'm sure he didn't vote for the living wage today. I'm sure he was there in spirit though.
Okay, I'm going to the recommendations. Great. Okay, I've no other business. Thank you.